Welcome to episode 12 of Into the Van, and I'm so fucking happy to have this episode airing. I hope you've been enjoying these conversations. What I've been wanting to do is I'm a huge fan of podcasts like Walking the Floor with Chris Shiflett, The Working Songwriter with Joe Pug, and I love these conversations with musicians that, you know, just like free form. They're not really like scheduled, or they don't have a ton of questions prepped in. It's not, you know, so much as an interview as a conversation. I love those type of things. And what I wanted to do was bring those artists that may not necessarily be at the level yet of those huge podcasts. And if I'm lucky enough to get to sit down with these artists and chat to them, then for me, that's fucking phenomenal. And, you know, I've had the Plothounds on, Sean James, Drew Dixon, Amelia Quinn, and I couldn't be like happier with how many phenomenal artists I've gone. And, you know, I've not stopped there. I'm getting management and promoters, and I want to try and cover everything as much as possible, especially in like the country scene. And today's guest is, you know, at the top of my list of someone I've wanted to speak to because I'm a huge fucking fan, and it's Charles Wesley Godwin. Last year, while I was on tour around Europe, he released the Seneca album. I don't know if he released it that month, but I remember I read an article about him releasing this album. I was like, fuck it, I'll check it out. And I did not stop listening to Seneca for that entire tour. Then whenever I think of that album, I think of how well the fucking songs are written, how incredible an album it is put together, and it just reminds me of driving around Europe doing my own thing. So the memories of it are just, you know, insane. And I'm so happy I got to sit down with Charles, and he managed to like slot me in at 5 a.m. his time, because obviously we're doing these through Zoom, so the time difference. So he was gracious enough and kind enough to you know, wake up early before his kid like woke up as well. So I'm so fucking grateful that he managed to find the time to sit down with me and talk. But this is a brilliant podcast. If you've not listened to Charles before, go listen to his Seneca album. It's one of my favorite country albums. It's probably my favorite album of 2019. I've spun it a ton, and I'm just a huge fan of the guy. So to get to sit down and talk to him was, you know, definitely a bucket list for the podcast. This episode is brought to you, of course, by The Next Life. The album is out now. You can buy it on Bandcamp. You can stream it on Spotify, wherever you want. I'm going to drop a track in now.
When I go, bury me in the sky. When I go, take 2 pennies for my eyes. Then my debts are paid. I don't need no grave. Where I go, I carry my dead with me. I'll see them in the rain before the cemetery. When my debts are paid, I don't need no grave.
And I don't know how long I'm going to keep dropping these tracks in for, guys. I don't want you to get sick of it. I don't want you to get bored. But, you know, this is something that I'm so proud that I've managed to make, and it's out there now and it's being well received. So I just want to share it with as many people as I can. So, you know, if you dig it, go listen to it. If you don't, you can skip ahead to this fabulous podcast with Charles Wesley Godwin. We can go into so much, including touring. Internationally, had like a huge Scandinavian tour at the end of 2019, you know, being a father during lockdown. And I think one of the things we touched on early on is how the silver lining to this for musicians is we would be away so much more than we are now. So it's truly, we're getting to cherish the time we have because we know we wouldn't have it otherwise. I think that's a rare thing to actually have. You know, you'll be tripping over each other and you may be getting sick of it, But, you know, when you go on tour for months at a time, you know, it really brings home how valuable the seconds and minutes you have with your loved ones are. So we go into that. We go into, you know, fishing and hunting. And, you know, I'm a huge, you know, fan of Charles. So we go into songwriting. We go into his influences. I'm so happy that we go into a possible UK tour. You know, listen to the full podcast and find out. But without further ado, this is episode 12 of Into the Van with Mike West and Charles Wesley Godwin. Welcome to Into the Van with me, Mike West. Go! So, you know, again, thank you so much for doing this for us. So, with everything that's been going on in terms of the pandemic and things, it's kind of like everyone's taking a forced break. Obviously, you've just had a kid, so I assume this has probably come at like the best time, really, like personally. Have you just been like enjoying the time?
It's been great, yeah. As far as getting to spend time with family, that side of things, it's been really, really great. It's kind of been it's been like a blessing. He's going on 8 months old now. So yeah, these early formative months, I've gotten to spend so much of this time at home, and he's pretty attached to me, which is cool. I don't know if it would have been like that otherwise.
Yeah. But did you have like a lot of dates booked in that you've had have had to have been cancelled and postponed? So would you have been away for this time?
Yeah, there's been a lot of dates canceled, and we're to the point now where there would have been things that I think April, May, and June were all pretty well filled and planned for at the time that things broke out in March. And then there were some things that were, you know, set for later in the year, but we're to the point now where, I mean, things never even got booked because of this. But yeah, it's been a lot of work. But it's not like I wasn't going to go full fledged. Like even had I been working, there's going to be an effort to find a good balance. Yeah. But no, it definitely wouldn't have been time like this, this consistent. I think I was working in the first 3 months that he was alive, and I was gone for 7 weeks of that. I believe.
Yeah. But I think this is obviously it's a terrible situation across everyone, but it has kind of allowed people like musicians and things who are away for such a time to kind of take a forced break and reassess. And I know a lot of people have just been enjoying the family time. And I think if there's a silver lining to all this, I think that's probably it.
Yeah. I think you'll see a different mindset out of a lot of folks, not even just in like the performing world, but I think you'll see a different approach and perspective from a lot of folks on the other side of this. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a large segment of society that kind of has a restructure of priorities in their mind coming out on the other end of this, where you might, especially like in the US, people don't take time off. You know, a lot of people just go and go and go, and they look up and they're in their 50s and 60s, and then they start taking a breath. You know, you see a lot of that. And I think maybe on the other end of this, you might see some folks slow it down a little bit and kind of have family and time with family number one on that list. That wouldn't surprise me.
Hopefully. I think like I've been reading a lot of there's like a book called Utopia for Realists by a guy called Rutger Bregman, and it's kind of advocating for universal basic income, but it talks about like how in different European countries the working week is 10 till 4 Monday to Thursday, and they have like a longer weekend and things like that, and it's achievable in a society. And I'm hoping that again it is everyone kind of like with this step back can look and reassess what's truly important, and we have the resources for certain things, so why can't we then twist it to fit a more like happy, healthier balance.
Yeah, that's definitely a conversation that needs to be had, and I think everybody that on the other side of this, when they're deciding who they want to represent, themselves and their community and their governments, they need to think about, are we really happy with the way that our money is allocated and how it's how it's been spent all these years? Because you look at when something like this, how just all of a sudden trillions of dollars are available for certain corporations and businesses, but then it's not for others.
Yeah.
There's so many small businesses that aren't going to make it through this. But yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think there are trillions of dollars divvied out. And that's a lot of responsibility to those who are deciding who gets that.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I don't know, but it really does matter who you send to, as far as the U.S. goes, who we send to Washington to represent, because that's a very big responsibility, and I don't know that it's being handled the best.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. I was talking to it. Yeah,
I can't give me a time, and I was born in 1992. Yeah, I can't really ever tell you a time where everybody has felt like their money has been used wisely, but in a total sense of the word. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that need to be thought about by the public and by folks in our communities and on the other end of this.
Yeah, I think it's the same here with Britain as well. Over the obviously, like with Brexit and everything that's happened since 2016, there was always in the headlines this mocked idea of a magic money tree that the Prime Minister kept flouting about, like how they couldn't afford to do X or do Y because there isn't this magic money tree they can shake and everything will come out. But then they somehow found money recently to paint the Prime Minister's plane, which cost like £90,000. And then they're reinforcing or reinvesting in Trident, which is the nuclear program. And that's like $2 trillion, £2 trillion. And all this money is then coming through to like bail out the banks. And then you can see that the arts sector's just been funded during the pandemic for £1.5 billion. So it's clearly that all these resources have just been kind of sat on, but no one's willing to acknowledge what they could do with this and actually help society with homelessness, or obviously we have free healthcare. So there's other things that can be invested into. And I'm really hoping that this is a step back so we can look at it. But I have an issue, I don't know if you feel the same way with over in Europe, but there's this entrenchment of career politicians that I think is the biggest issue, because a lot of people will want to maintain a status quo because it keeps them in a job that our taxes pay for.
Yeah. Yeah. You see a lot of career politicians over here in the U.S. and you wonder sometimes, you see so much money going outside of the border, going to all these things that folks within the country really have it has no effect on them. It's almost like a worldwide political board game almost.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect the actual working people on the ground, and you wonder why sometimes the attention and the attention doesn't go to problems that you see inside the communities that you see on the streets, like you're talking about, homeless and things like that, infrastructure. You wonder sometimes, how do we have all this money to get to be, painting planes or starting wars? And I understand that there has to be lines drawn to keep people safe in certain instances, but I think sometimes that excuse is used for certain situations that maybe we shouldn't be getting into.
And with, obviously, you released Seneca last year, and the opening track of that, Windmill, was that kind of, because you talk about like the dilapidation of towns and the struggles of working class in that song, has that been something that's been like prescient and like at the forefront of your mind for a while?
Yeah, growing up here in West Virginia, you just, like I told you, I was born in 1992. So basically my whole life has been existing in I guess you'd say, a downturn of what once was in certain communities around West Virginia. And there's a whole backstory to that, where there's a bunch of good and there's a bunch of bad. It's not like it was utopia, but there definitely was a more thriving. There were a lot more thriving towns than there are now. You kind of drive through a bunch of depressed areas. If you picture a real bustling, like robust town, and you just imagine it in a world 50 years later with 1/4 of the population, and the I guess you'd say the average income of the town in terms of spending power, being cut in half, then you're kind of looking at a lot of West Virginia towns. That's, I guess, the best way I can describe it, just off the top of my head. And it's a unique thing it's a unique place. There's very few places in America like that where you see that. And, I don't know how many places in the world are like that, but it's very unique. But yeah, Windmill's just talking about, something that would happen pretty often in the last 30 years. If there was an American craft business, something that has that involves manufacturing, you in the last 30 or so years, you see a lot of that going away. So that's kind of what that song touches on. And when things like that would happen, if then people just got to adapt and adjust, and they do whatever they can to make a living, which a lot of times would mean, instead of having a single professional job to pay the bills, like a career job, it just turns into maybe half a dozen different odd jobs to make ends meet. So that's kind of what that song was talking about there.
Yeah, it's weird because like I'm from, like, I was born in 1990, so I think like I'm only a couple of years older than you, but I know from like the small towns that I've grown up in, it's the exact same thing where it's, you remember as a kid the whole like town center being busy, and even if you weren't fully aware of the problems, and every shop seemed to be open, every shop was like thriving, it was always busy. And it's all like, as we've grown up, it's each one's like closed down slowly and slowly. And I kind of get why the older generation are more like conservative, or at least more like insular in their thinking, because they've not only seen it happen, but they've obviously been the ones affected by it. While we've been kids at that time, they're the ones who then lost income and businesses and had to adapt in such a way that you can kind of not agree with the policies or their kind of mindset for thinking so insularly, but you understand why they're coming from that perspective.
Yeah. Well, they can be, somebody can have, everybody's got views all across the board, but if in a certain segment of the political spectrum, or especially economically, somebody might be dead on that you don't agree with them and with other aspects. But I think, on the other end of this, like, you might see folks more focused on things being made locally and be willing to pay a few dollars more, or a few pounds more for something that they know was made within their community or within their region. And you see a value to that when everything comes to a stop. You have a worldwide crisis like this, and things aren't on the shelves, and you're dependent upon places that are across the world, you do see where, there is a little bit of wisdom, and if things were to be made still, like in, locally and regionally.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I've been, over the course of this lockdown, we've got a back garden that's been an absolute shit heap for about 2 years. And it's been my goal for over the last few months. I said I'd get it ready by my girlfriend's birthday, which I'm nearly there. And it was trying to, like, source timber and like other things like soil, cement, and get all this through. And you look at the big chains that you trusted for years, like B&Q or wherever that had online stores, and all of them were closed. All of them were out of stock. And it was, a quick Google search to local things, and I found everything relatively either the same price, slightly cheaper, and a delivery fee on top of it that was like reasonable. And it's definitely inspired me to like do more of a Google search and more of a, look around my actual local place. It was even, we went for a walk one night and I walked past a timber yard I didn't know was there. I was like, oh shit. And then I ordered from there for the last like 3 times. And it's been really nice to like kind of build those relationships with local people. And it's, when I've been working away, it's been something a bit more rewarding, because that it's all not only by your own hand, but it's also local. And I don't want to sound like a hipster when it comes to that stuff, but it is,
I think
a rewarding thing.
Too. Yeah, your money's staying in the community.
Yeah.
I think I think on the other end of this, there's going to be, I think a lot of people are thinking about that right now, and hopefully there's an effort and a revival in local business and local industry for things. I'm willing to pay a couple dollars more if I know that it was made, and it's going to a family, in the community or in the region. My wife and I, we've been trying to find anything we can, in our perspective. We've been trying to find anything we can that's made in the USA. We're trying our best to support that, even all the way down to a baby teether, like any little thing we can find that was made, in the USA. We're trying to support that.
Oh, good. And, this is a pretty big segue, but made in the USA, the Seneca album for me is my favorite album of 2019. And you're one of the people I've wanted to talk to for a while, because obviously I listened to this album while I was on tour last year. And I don't know if it was because I was away from like my girlfriend and my family and stuff, and it hit harder. But that album to me was just a perfect like capturation, because we're roughly the same age as well. It seemed like it spoke a bit more to me as well. And like we've just talked about, seeing like towns and the dereliction of stuff, it just seemed to resonate harder. But with Seneca, what was your writing process behind that? How long did that record take in terms of writing?
It the first song on that one, I think was let me think here. I think it was Coal Country. I finished that in June 2016. And then I finished the last song, Here in Eden, in March of 2018. So I had actually recorded all the other songs on Seneca back in the first week of January 2018, and then I went in and did Here in Eden, as I felt like it belonged on it. And I had a couple other things I wanted to just do better in May. So yeah, it was just about 2 years. And I wasn't, there's a lot of songs, there's some songs in those 2 years that I'd written that just didn't fit on it. But I didn't really, as I was going, kind of each song was its own thing, and I wasn't trying to make an album that all fit together. That really wasn't the thought. I was playing with an old band of mine most of that time, but it just worked out nicely that they all did kind of fit together pretty nice.
Cool. And how long, obviously you said you wrote some of these in 2016, so how long have you been performing as a solo artist for? Is it from 2016 or was it earlier?
I'd say I went in both feet first and started trying to do this for a living in January 2016. Prior to that, I was doing, I played I was kind of weekend warrioring when I was in college, and I had some odd jobs that I did for money, but in 2016 is when I kind of went all in.
Cool. And with the album, what was the reaction like when you released it? Did you see a significant like bump or like?
Yeah. No, Mike, from where I was coming from prior to Seneca was booking myself in bars and playing usually on average 3 to 4 hours. Sometimes the amount of money that I would actually make in an evening would range from $80 to like a really, really good night was like $200 maybe. Like I thought I was really making it if I walked out of a place with 200 some bucks, even though I spent 120 in the day just in order to get there and feed myself or whatever it may be. So, and also nobody, no ticketed show, nobody buying tickets, nobody cared, which is fine. That's all normal. But you do kind of, you have to put the horse blinders on, because if you do stop, and when you're going through years of that, if you stop and think about what you're actually doing and what the actual results are, it'd be really easy to pivot and do something in life. It's hard to tell yourself if this is going to work out. So I went from that kind of being my weekly routine to playing proper tours and playing in venues and people buying tickets and showing up. So it was a 180 turn.
Really?
Yeah. Seneca it actually has allowed me to do this, and make a proper living. It's been really good.
That's amazing, man. Like, I know I've read a few articles recently about the disadvantage of albums and how, people are inclined more to do just like single releases in terms of online profile for streaming and things. But I still think albums have that place to show an artist kind of arriving, because, even if you look at Tyler Childers or another established artist, they were grinding it out for years before they actually released their debut album. And then the debut album was kind of like the line in the sand that they then used to like push off of. And I don't think a lot of people realize that how long an artist is actually going for before even like a debut album may come out.
Yeah. There's a lot behind anybody that you see that's doing well in anything. There's a lot of time behind that. And everybody's heard this before, but there's no overnight, success. And I'm still just, I'm just a kid from West Virginia that I'm fortunate enough to play songs for a living, but I'm not a big deal or anything. But I just feel very fortunate that I get to do this and make a little bit of money each time I go out. And this is just something that I really enjoy. And as far as the album thing, there's people that, their path, it might be best for them to do one song at a time. And, that might be their thing. All I can do is kind of my little thing in my little corner of the world. And I think for me, it's just about, and it may not be it's definitely not the most commercial thing, but it's just what I do. And, that's kind of all you just got to find your way, your path, your little place in this world. And I think mine is, I sit down at when I sit down at the notebook and I'm working on a song, I'm just trying to make myself happy. And that it tends to come out in more of a story form with music to it, and that's not going to be the most commercially popular thing, but there is a segment of society out there that really enjoys that. So I'm just fortunate that that's the case and that I get to do that. And, albums like Seneca that have it has a flow and like a coherency to it. I think that's kind of the way that I'll put my art out, but there's thousands of other people that, put out singles or something like that, and that's the best way for them.
No, I think with Seneca as well, it's got such a weight to the record that it has to be, in my opinion, put out as a full record. But with obviously like touring and things, were you booking independently, and has that shifted now? Is someone else helping you book those tours?
Yep. Yeah, I have a whole team of folks that help me out. They're down in Austin, Texas. True Grit, and yeah, it's been awesome. All I have to worry about now is just writing songs and just working on actually playing music, which that's been night and day better.
Oh, that's the best thing, man. I saw, was it last year or early this year, you went on a Scandinavian tour?
Yeah, it's first time playing over in Europe, and I didn't really know what to expect on the plane over. I was kind of thinking, I don't know if anybody's going to show up, and you know what? It turned out pretty well.
And what was the crowds like compared to like the American audience have been playing for?
Tell you what, they're way more quiet, like during the show, over there. And it's not like, I told you, the way I came up. So I it doesn't bother me as long as people are having a good time. There are a few people talking. I just play right through it. And if it bothers the crowd, they'll police themselves. But no, I mean, I can tell you for sure the biggest difference playing in Denmark, Norway, and Sweden compared to what I'm used to back home is, I mean, you could hear a pin drop, which that was for sure different.
Cool, man. And did a touring agency, because it was out on the rise, isn't it? Did they
Daniel
approach you?
Yeah. He had, I think when Seneca came out, it was a few weeks later, he approached me and he started planning that one out.
Cool, man. And obviously, selfishly, is there any plans for a UK tour or
Yeah, I think there was going to be like an Ireland UK one in the spring of next year, but I think the way this year's gone, I would imagine most of 2021 is just going to be playing the US, and then maybe 2022 get back over. I'm working on an album, which will be the second one now, and I'll go in the first week of September to record it so that it'll be coming out next year. So that'll take a whole chunk of the year. So yeah, but I definitely would like to get over to Ireland and the UK at some point. That's going to be the nice thing. There's a lot of cons to playing the music. You're away a lot, and that whole thing, you miss a lot of family time. But one of the pros is when you reach a certain point, you get to play in places around the world that are that are a good experience to bring family along and see the world and travel. So yeah, I think when that time comes that I get over there, that'll be something that'll bring my wife and bring my kid and kind of make an experience of it.
Oh, amazing. And you said you're doing an album now. What is so have you gone in to start recording, or is it still the writing process? Or
no, the writing's all done. They're all demoed out, and now here in a few weeks we'll start getting all the parts down. We'll go in and get drums and bass, and I'll do scratch vocals with that, and then I'll go in and sing and play in September, and then all the rest of the folks will put their parts down, and we'll get it all stitched up, and probably in the fall.
Cool, man. Was there a process behind like how you approached this record? Was it different to how you've approached Seneca, or is the writing thematically?
It's all with me. It just starts out with everybody's different, but at some point throughout a day, I'm usually going about my business, and some sort of line will, kind of like a little seed will playing itself in my head, and if it's good, I make a point to put it down in my notebook or on my phone notes, and then I start from there and start trying to craft a song around that. And I'll just, whether it's one day or months, I'll just keep kind of working on it. And once I feel like it's done, I move on to the next one. And that each one is its own thing. So going into it, I didn't have any like, I'm going to write about this. And it's, you know, it's never that. It's not like I have a whole lot of experience, considering, you know, I just have the one album, but the second one, it turned out where it's a group of songs that all fit together pretty well, and it's very story based. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm really proud of it. I think I continue to get better.
Oh, Sigma, I'm really looking forward to hearing it. But with obviously your writing style stuff, who would you list as your like influences, or who do you remember being like instrumental in not even just making you want to pick up a guitar, but being a songwriter, or who you go back to the records and things?
Right now, Chris Knight's been a huge influence. And then I've been listening to a lot of Warren Haynes, like acoustic when he'll play acoustic. So right now, those two are kind of at the top in my mind, but that changes over time. You know, like 4 years ago, I was listening to nothing but Willie Nelson, and he was, you know, the number one, you know, kind of singer in my head at all times. And then last year it was Townes Van Zandt. So it switches whatever I'm really kind of connecting with at any time. But yeah, I'd say, yeah, Chris Knight right now is the main person that I'm listening to.
Cool. Yeah.
I can't remember. What was the second part of your question? I can't remember.
Just the like your influences prior to writing and things. Who was like back in the day?
Yeah. Well, I always had in the car growing up, my dad used to listen to oldies radio, so I was listening to a bunch of the music from the '60s, which, you know, that's like the best pop music. I think probably the best pop decade ever. I mean, their pop was nothing but, you know, the charts on the pop charts in the '60s were like nothing but almost classics the whole way through. It's crazy how good the music was then. And but I remember when I wanted to pick up a guitar, I was watching the Grammys, and the Avett Brothers had played with Bob Dylan. They did a live performance, and I was in college, and I wanted to find I was at a time in my life where, you know, my adolescence was ending, and I didn't have sports to play anymore, and I had a bunch of free time, and I had to. It was that transition point where you gotta find out some other hobbies. You gotta find some other things to do, or else you're just gonna end up kind of being lazy when you're not working or in school, you know. So I was just looking for something to get into, and I thought I watched that evening, and I was like, man, that was great. Maybe I'll pick up a guitar and just, you know, fool with it in the evenings, and that way I'd have just something else. I've always hunted and fished, but especially, you know, when you're in college, you can't do that all the time. So I thought, yeah, I'll get a guitar and start fooling with it. And it kind of, as the years went, it snowballed and turned into a.
Oh, amazing. And with like hunting and fishing, obviously in the UK we have fishing, but you have to buy a license for it. But with like hunting and fishing around your neck of the woods, is there licenses and things that you have to obtain to do that type of stuff? And is it only certain animals and things?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You got to get a license through like West Virginia has got the DNR, and you go in and register whether you're a resident in state or out of state. You can get a license, and there's different seasons and all, and you can get the wildlife agents for the state. They get pretty good counsel, with the deer, turkey, populations are each year, and they're able to make a pretty good estimate on, how many tags can be handed out for the year, so that everything's sustainable. But it's a huge thing culturally here in West Virginia, and as the years have gone, it's turned into the people coming in to enjoy, especially like the fishing waters in West Virginia, because West Virginia's got great trout fishing. I don't think there's too much of like destination hunters for the state. There's some spots, and then there's a lot of folks that might have like a second home or a cabin or something that they'll go in for hunting season. But for fishing, though, I think there's people that come all around the world to fish in West Virginia. We have healthy streams, native trout, and it's a big thing. Yeah, so it's a huge thing culturally here.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like, I've only ever fished like over in here. It's like carp, which you have to release back, and there's bream and trouts and stuff. But the hunting, I've always kind of like, I really enjoy like watching documentaries and following different hunters on Instagram who are like sustainable and eat what they kill and stuff. And it's really interesting, like, way of life that, like, as an outsider I've looked into. And also I've only ever fired a gun once, and I was fucking terrified of it.
Yeah,
like we did
it's a terrifying thing, but you get used to it and all. You get like proficient with it.
Yeah, we went clay pigeon shooting, so it was a shotgun, and I've never been more like nervous holding something in my life.
Yeah,
but, it's such an interesting thing. And obviously, like West Virginia, it's got that kind of, like you say, there's a culture and stuff to it. And how often do you go out, or is it like only certain seasons?
I go hunting every fall. Whitetail's the main thing I hunt, and then I fish anytime I get a chance all year long. Yeah, I bring my fly rod with me anywhere I go. Like next week I'll be down, I think I'll be outside of a little place called Middlesboro, Kentucky, and I'll bring the fly rod with me. The fellow that's putting on it's like a cabin. It's like a little show in a cabin for like 10 people, and I think we'll be outside just so everybody's spaced out. So it'll be a real small thing, but we'll be fishing, I believe, before the show.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
I've never done fly fishing. It's the one I've always wanted to do. I've only done sea and obviously like lake and river, but it's always been float fishing. It's never been fly.
No, it's all good. My wife, she grew up in Florida, and she grew up always going out in the Gulf and fishing, and that was a huge part of her life growing up.
Yeah. Cool. And going back to the rep and stuff, so you're gonna start recording it, and you said it's released next year. Cool, man. So how many tracks have you gone, or are you gonna? Is that kind of like once you've got everything recorded, you'll see how it flows and then maybe cut, or?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think I know what it will be, but you never know till it's all done, and maybe something will get cut or added. So I guess it's hard to say, but I have a pretty good idea in my head, what it'll end up being.
Cool. And then you said obviously it makes so much sense that people are gonna kind of tour the country they're from, because an international tour right now is just gonna rack up the cost. So do you have plans to tour throughout the United States next year?
Oh yeah, next year I think it'll be a lot of making up what was canceled this year, and then hopefully I can get to some new spots. Like I've not played the Pacific Northwest yet, and I know there's a number of people out there that would like to come out to a show. So there's some spots that that I've never even reached yet.
Really, what spots in the States? Because again, I was talking about this to Drew Dixon, a Nashville artist, and you kind of forget how big the States are. So you kind of everyone just travels everywhere, but a lot of people don't really leave their state. So where have you not really played in the U.S.?
I've not played in Washington, Oregon, California, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, North Dakota, Alaska, Hawaii, in Maine
Oh, cool.
and Vermont. I
Mm.
think I've played everywhere else. Rhode Island too, I guess. You get, usually man, I don't know. Poor Rhode Islanders. I think if they want to see a lot of folks, they end up having to go over to go down to Philly or go up to New York or something. I don't think too many folks make the time to stop, which is a shame, but it's such a small state that people just kind of go around the edge of it. Or if maybe they do go into Providence every now and then. But yeah, I think that those are the ones I've not played yet. I'm pretty sure I've played in some form or another in just about every other state.
Yeah. Oh, cool. And with Rhode Island and stuff, I kind of find that the smaller towns get a better reaction because there's obviously not a lot going on. I assume if you go play in New York, there's going to be a million things happening that night as well. Well, if you head to Rhode Island, I assume it's going to be, a lot less things going on that you can then, kind of use to your advantage.
Well, Rhode Island's they're in this, I'm drawing a blank on what the name is between DC and New York, but man, that whole northeastern coast is just jam-packed with people. There's towns with over 100,000 people, just one after another that you never even heard of. You know what I mean? That's a jam-packed place. So I bet Rhode Islanders probably have no shortage of things going on. They got more going on than anywhere in West Virginia probably any given night. But I get, at least with me, I think with what I do, it strikes a chord in a certain amount of folks, and then it's probably just a bunch of other folks. It's not their cup of tea for a bunch of other folks. But I've found with me, it might be in the mountain, whether it's in the mountains of Colorado or right in Manhattan. There's a certain number of folks that really enjoy what I do, and they come. Yeah, so I can play in downtown DC, and I'll have a good crowd of folks come out and really enjoy it. And then I can play in rural Kansas and have a good number of folks come out and have a good time. Now, I'm sure there's certain spots where people just haven't even heard of Seneca, never heard of me, and they wouldn't come. I'm sure, there's plenty of spots like that. To be honest, I played in Albuquerque last summer, and that was one of those spots. I don't think anybody in Albuquerque had heard of me, except there was one fellow that actually grew up the road. I'm in Seneca Rocks today. I was going to play a private show last night, but due to the uptick in COVID numbers in certain places, the private events this weekend were scratched because of where they were going to be. So I'm here in Seneca Rocks, and there's a guy that came out in Albuquerque that grew up just up the road here.
Oh, really?
I'm telling you, there's only 30 some people that have grown up right around in here. It's not like it's this giant population of people that are all around. So yeah, he came out, but other than that, I don't think anybody else came out and knowing who I was, so there's some of that, but for the most part, my experience has been since the album that there's some people just about anywhere that'll come out.
Oh, good. And with Seneca, I've got a song called Rock Ferry, which is based off my hometown on the Wirral. And for some reason, wherever I go, there's always someone from that area somehow seems to turn up at a gig. Have you found, with obviously naming it Seneca, more people will come out and engage and react because of maybe just the name alone?
I definitely had folks that are from the area usually will make an effort and come out and see me anytime I'm near them, which is always cool. Whether I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, or Fort Worth, Texas, or even in let me think where it was. I think it was in it was in this town. I think it was Karlstad, Sweden. Somebody that was from West Virginia. I don't think he'd heard of Seneca up until he just saw advertisements and promotions and stuff in town that I was going to be coming. And I think he recognized Seneca and saw the I think they were using the cover or something. And, looked it up and was like, holy crap, this guy's from West Virginia. So then he, checked it out and came out.
Awesome.
So you run into that sometimes where, if somebody that's from West Virginia or something just catches wind that I'm also a West Virginian, and they'll come out even if they hadn't heard of me prior to that, which is cool. That's nice. People support that way.
Oh, amazing. And with I know you've got some Ward Davis shows postponed, but with crowds like that where you're opening for, Ward Davis or Shooter Jennings or whoever, have you noticed the crowd reaction after that has been like maybe they didn't know who you were at the beginning, and then at the end of the show, either through your social media or people coming up at the end of merch tables or whatever, has there been an uptake in that?
Oh yeah, no, that's a huge help, is getting to go out with guys like Ward, and he has such a big following where he'll fill up, he'll have 500 people, filling up a venue, and I get to go up and play in front of that many folks, whereas maybe it would have taken me 8 shows to play in front of 500 folks. So that's a huge help. And yeah, I'm able to play and open for him, and there's folks that wouldn't have heard of me before that night, and they enjoy it, and then they come up and I see them again if I'm going through town or something like that. And that's a huge help. And hopefully I help Ward too with bringing out whatever small number of folks that come to see me, and it kind of helps boost up this crowd a little too.
Well, that's like the best thing, I think. Obviously the main act, opening act, special guest, whatever, that's always been the format for gigs, but you don't kind of analyze like the relationship between those two artists and how they kind of can work to bring in like a whole different crowd at the same time. It's really interesting thing I always like to see, and it's especially like I went to see a heavy metal band last year called Avatar, and they had an Irish punk band as the opening act, and then as another opening act they had like a folk singer called Dylan Walsh, who's now based over in Nashville. And the way that the night was laid out and the crowd was just really interesting vibe, and I think a lot more people could benefit from these type of like acts and things and collaborations.
Yeah, I mean, as an artist, I just enjoy getting to see somebody else perform, and it's inspiring to see other people that you admire and like their songs. You get to, I guess anytime you watch somebody play, you kind of keep a little piece of it with yourself, and you pick up things. You listen to how they craft their songs, and it's you grow from that. If you're in a bubble and never saw anybody else play, you may not I guess get some of those influences from the outside like you do when you get to tour with somebody and you see them night in, night out. You see them adjust to different situations, and I really enjoy getting to go out and be on the road with other folks. I feel like I'm really green, I'm it's not like I'm some multi-decade vet and playing music. So I feel like I learn a lot, being on the road with folks that are more experienced.
And just being on the road compared to, like being a weekend warrior and doing those gigs, having even just a run of like 6 dates is such, like when you first start, I was such a steep learning curve to play them 6 dates and travel back to back, because not only is it the shows themselves, which can be half an hour to an hour and a half or whatever, but then it's the travel in between. You don't realize the toll that it can take on you when you first start out. I think a lot of people see a musician, it's like, oh yeah, he's just playing for however long that night, but the mileage to get to that place. Yeah,
that's the real work of it, is the travel. It takes a toll on your health. That's another, I mean, you try to look on the bright side of something like COVID. Man, it's been nice having a normal home routine and getting to work out and eat home cooked food every evening, make your own dinner. It's it's been nice. And again, it was something where I was like, whew, man, I really need to lock it down when I get back on the road. I've got to have better willpower late at night with the food. Man, I think, as the years go, and maybe 1 or 2 nights a week, you get weak late at night. You pull into Arby's or something like that. And over the course of years, it has an effect, and you just don't notice it until you have the opportunity to stop and kind of get back to living a little bit more healthy. And that's for sure. I've always done pretty good at working out when I'm on the road and trying to eat healthy. But like I said, I would slip a few times a week and like really just make a real bad choice, especially food wise. And I think going forward, I'm going to do my best to try to keep it strict and not, rather than pull into that fast food at 2 a.m., just go to bed hungry and just eat a good breakfast, and, I've been running. I played a few dates back in June that were postponements from March, and I was able to go run each morning when I woke up and felt a million times better. So yeah, that's the one thing that really isn't work as far as when you're out playing shows is actually getting to play the show. That's fun. That's really nice. But the rest of the day, it sucks. You're just on the road, gas stations, venues are great for having shows and stuff, but a green room isn't necessarily can you sit down, or you're going to be fine. Okay. That's all you need. You know what I mean? It's not like it's like your living room at home or anything. So, you're trying to fit in like normal day things in the space of a maybe a venue with no lights yet and people wiping down a bar, or you're back in a green room trying to read a book or something. And it's just, that's playing music isn't, I wouldn't consider it hard work compared to people that work hard and different things in life, but it does have its aspects that are very much work, and it's not like this huge glamorous thing. Maybe I think only people that are just totally blown away, maybe a whole tour and don't remember it, like might be the only ones that look back and think, man, that was amazing. But if you can actually remember it all, you're like, man, there's just a lot of waiting and driving.
Yeah. But I know what you're saying about workout routines and stuff. I've been like, today I started a new workout routine because I'm 29, I'm 30 in November, and I'm terrified that if I hit 30 with a belly, I'm going to stay that way until the day I die. So I've got a goal to like try and fucking lose some weight and get into a bit of a better shape like I was a few years ago. So I started
locking it down,
trying to lock it down. I don't like, it's just kind of like, I think, do you know, like one of them films where someone's cursed and if they don't get to the thing by midnight, then it's forever. That's how I feel like a belly is when I'm 30.
No, you can always go back.
Yeah, but
even if it doesn't work out for you by November, I mean, you can always lock it down.
Yeah. But I just can't for the life of me. I like with running with headphones and stuff, like outside, I just can't do it. On a treadmill and stuff, I'm fine. But I canceled a gym membership because that was just pissing money away. So I've just recently bought a skipping rope, and I've got some kettlebells. So I'm trying to do new workout. But I'm also thinking for the skipping rope, I can do that because I tour in a camper. I can literally just take this with me, and then I've got a little thing I can do in car parks. And stuff, and that's I say I'm gonna keep to this. Check in with me when I'm 30. But
I know you got to play tricks with yourself, and some, like I said, I miss some days too. But you play little mental games with yourself to get yourself to do it each morning. Whether that's you're pretending that there's somebody there watching you and judging you, like if you don't, and they call you whatever you got to do.
Yeah, that's always the
my thing. I got a little dog. By little I mean he's young, and I bring him on the road with me. He's got a bunch of energy, and that's a nice thing for me is I know that I need to take care of him and get that exercise and energy out of him, or else he'll just be bouncing off the walls all day, especially if he's in the car driving with me. So, when I have him, I know there's no option. I can't skip her. Got to go for the run. He needs to run. So things, that helps me.
Yeah, I've got 2 house cats, so if I followed their routine, I'd just be asleep for 16 hours of the day.
Yeah, and slaughtering small mammals at night.
But yeah, man. So I'll let you go because I've been watching the window behind you slowly turn from like dark to light, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But
little man, I think I heard him back in the room there stirring a little bit. Yeah. He's probably starting to wake up.
Yeah, but so for 2021, or 2020 even, what's the rest of your plans really? Is it just work on the record to bring out for next year?
Yeah, the way things are looking, I think there's some things scheduled in the fall, but the way it's been going, it seems to be once it gets to a certain amount of time out from it, they're just dropping like flies, one after the other. So I'm not even going to count on any tour dates happening. If they do, and it's all good wherever that local municipality is, then cool, I'll be there. But I can't count on it for sure. No. For sure. So the main thing that I'm focused on is that it's nice having this time that I can get the second album made and get everything for this project ready to go. So whenever the world does kind of return to some sense of normalcy and I can go back to work, that I have this nice thing that I'm proud of that I'll be able to let go of and release, and hopefully just keep doing this and folks enjoy it. And at that point I'd have 2 pieces of work that I'd be real proud of. And
amazing. That's the main thing, man. And I am really hoping for a UK tour from you in 2022, and play a Liverpool date as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting over there. I've never been to England. I've never been to Ireland, so that would be a real fun thing. Not only just to go play, but just to be a tourist and see some of the sights and stuff.
Amazing, man. Well, I know you'll have a crowd when you get here, but thank you so much for talking to me today, man. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me, Mike. And again, I'm sorry for being so flaky, but it was just a crazy couple weeks, but I'm glad we could link up and get this.
Yeah, it's definitely worth the wait, man. I appreciate it. So I'll hit the end of recording now, and thank you so much.
All right, brother. I'll see you.
Catch you later.
And there we have it, guys. It's episode 12 of Into the Van, and we're done. So happy for you guys to listen to it. Let me know what you think. I still don't know whether to change the name of this podcast, because as I said in the last episode, I've done more episodes out of the van than into the van. So is it just limiting me now? Is it not really showing what we're trying to get across? But let me know what you think. Drop us an email, send us a comment. This is all over Facebook and social media, so let me know. And let me know who you'd like on as well, because I've got some guests in the works that are fucking incredible, and I'm really hoping they pay off, but I don't want to say anything too much until, it's recorded and in the bag. So, have a fun week, guys. Let me know what you think about this episode. Go check out Seneca by Charles Wesley Godwin. You will not regret it. And, have a fun time. Peace.